So, I didn't listen to Doom Coalition 2 for a while because everyone was complaining about it being a bit of a disappointment, and I had other stuff to listen to / do at the time of its release. But when I finally did end up listening to it, contrarian shit that I am, I ended up thinking, what's the big problem? This is fine. I mean, yeah, it's not very adventurous, it's the standard pulp sci-fi we're used to hearing from Big Finish these days, and most of the stories follow recognisable formulas, and there isn't really an obvious highlight like with Doom Coalition 1 with the Red Lady, but in its defence, I appreciated that Doom Coalition 2's stories were still distinctive. There was still a comprehensible story arc bubbling away in the background over the course of the box set, but the stories didn't blur together like with the second half of Dark Eyes, and while the conclusion was pretty disappointing again, and there are plenty of holes for me to pick, is there something wrong with me? I keep having the opposite reaction that people expect me to have. I think Doom Coalition 2 is much better than the 10th Doctor box set and the Diary of Riversong Series 1. Leave Doom Coalition 2 alone! Anyway, we start out with Beachhead, Nick Briggs' first contribution to the 8th Doctor Rangers since Dark Eyes 2, which is... yeah, it's alright. The 8th Doctor and friends decide they need a bit of a holiday, so they go to Stegmore, where there's been bizarre regular flash flooding, and they uncover a buried Vord spaceship on the beach. You remember the Vord, right? The alien race from Keys of Marinus that sort of looked like Cybermen but in wetsuits? The audience of people who think Keys of Marinus is really underrated is a lot smaller than Big Finish are making it out to be. Anyway, Beachhead pretty much follows the same story structure of Great War from Dark Eyes 1, except with a less popular monster. The Vord spend most of the runtime off-screen being this dark, elusive presence in the background, allegedly being the cause of the ominous events that are happening, before they show up towards the end, but unlike with Great War, it all gets wrapped up pretty quickly, and then the story arc for the rest of the box set gets set up in like the last 2 minutes. It's pretty slow, and you're not totally sure what it's trying to achieve at first, but I guess I enjoyed it because it had been a while since I'd heard Briggs do a more character-focused script. You get a lot of different types of Nick Briggs scripts. You get the play-it-safe, 1970s-styled, heavily Terry Nation-influenced pulp sci-fi Nick Briggs, which is the most common and the one that I'm least enthusiastic about. Experimental Nick Briggs, which is incredibly rare and was last seen in the 3rd edition of the Prisoner box set. And then there's the more character-focused Briggs, who can either be fucking beautiful or very ham-fisted. And Beachhead is sort of in between. There are some scenes in this one between the Doctor and a lady that he met in the 70s when he was the 3rd Doctor, who has a beef with him. There is some really good writing there, there's some decent dramatic tension. But the thing is though, I'm not totally sure if I like Big Finish's more recent tendency to copiously give sequels to pretty much everything in Classic Who. I mean, they're bringing the Movellans back next year. The fucking Movellans. And here you've got this story which follows up on an incidental character from the 3rd Doctor's era, combined with a monster from Keys of Marinus. I just think it's classic Doctor Who sequel fatigue I'm suffering from here. I'm just starting to think that the universe is looking a lot smaller than it should feel if the Doctor's gonna run into creatures and people that he's met before during Classic Who all the bloody time. Continuing down this road might do a bit more harm than good. Underlining the word might there. Anyway, Scenes from Her Life is next up, which I was really anticipating because John Dorney's recent work has been fucking fantastic, and his contribution to Doom Coalition 1 was the fucking Red Lady, and while Scenes from Her Life doesn't quite measure up to it, and I personally felt it was still a couple of drafts away from being something really special, but I enjoyed Scenes from Her Life for what it was. The Doctor, Liv and Helen stumble across a twisted wreck of a TARDIS inside of the Vortex, which is sort of like this weird twisted complex inhabited by these two crazy Lewis Carroll type people who claim to not be Time Lords but have mysterious hazy memories of Gallifrey, who are conducting experiments on prisoners from all different corners of time and space, and there's also this Time Lady who's been kidnapped and wired into the machines, and we get flashbacks to when she was on Gallifrey when she was in the middle of finding out that she has psychic powers, that she's told by Time Lords in higher places she must have suppressed. The only real problem I have with Scenes from Her Life is it was played a bit too funny and tongue-in-cheek. There were a few too many jokes and comedy bits that, while they did make me laugh, I felt it detracted from the mysterious and unsettling atmosphere that should have come naturally to this story. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some good writing in setting up future events and questions that engage you and make you look up and go, ooh, I really want to know what's going on here. That and this was the first time since the Red Lady that new companion Helen really had that much to do. I'm not totally sure how I feel about Helen as a whole, because since she was introduced, all she's really had the chance to do so far is whine a lot and accidentally fuck over the entire universe. I mean, they're clearly trying to give her a sense of purpose, but I just don't think she feels like she's really all there yet, if you know what I mean. And to be honest, Liv was already filling the companion role pretty nicely. I don't want to be too harsh, but with the addition of River Song to the Doom Coalition saga towards the end of this box set, aside from this story, I've kind of been struggling to see why another companion was really that necessary. The third in the box set is The Gift, which sees the Doctor, Liv and Helen arriving in early 20th century San Francisco around the time of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, where the Doctor conveniently goes a bit mad and wanders off screen for a bit for what feels like the billionth time, while Liv and Helen run into a struggling theatre director and his nice but dim cast member in a production of King Lear, who are having money troubles and have a loan shark threatening to break their legs. When they run into a man with a psychic power that can be passed from person to person that lets you do anything and create money from thin air. But there's a downside. This is not a gift. It is also a terrible, terrible curse with grave, grave consequences. The Gift is really fun, but I felt it was a bit too traditional. I mean, I never zoned out at any point. I usually find Mark Platt scripts really engaging, and there were some cool plot twists. That and it's got some of the best sound design that I've heard in a Big Finish play for quite a while. Later in the second half, when we get to the earthquake itself, it does sound really impressive, and it does a good job getting you immersed in what's happening. I suppose most people's prominent complaints with Doom Coalition 2 is, while it's as good as you'd expect of Big Finish, there aren't really that many moments that leap out at you and make you go, wow, that was unexpected. I mean, Mark Platt's a seasoned Big Finish veteran doing as good a job as he always does, and the events of Beachhead and scenes from her life are utilised in the conclusion of The Gift in a very satisfying way. It's good, but like with most of this box set, it doesn't really stand out in Big Finish canon that well. The box set finishes up with, unfortunately, another damp squib, the Sonim Answer. The Doctor, Liv and Helen wander into the TARDIS and find a message saying, "Hello, sweetie," from, yep, you guessed it, the Axons. Sorry, River Song. Anyway, so River summons them all to this planet being mined by these evil aliens who are a bunch of massive dickheads to the natives or something. Oh, and the mines are beneath an active volcano. Also River is there. And so's the 11, or something. For a box set that had mostly dealt with familiar ideas within some pretty interesting landscapes, this was the one that I felt was the most uninspired, and River only appeared to be thrown into the mix just for the hell of it. You've got the 11 and Kalira working together, and 8 and River working together. Except, of course, with the contrivance that 8 and River can't meet yet, or the Web of Time will start fucking itself again. So River has to spend most of this edition exposition dumping with Helen, while Liv and the Doctor are off-screen doing other stuff. I'm still struggling to see much of a point in the way of shoving River earlier into the Doctor's timeline. Maybe the point will become more grounded in future box sets. There are obvious attempts at setting things up in the Sonim Answer, which kinda worries me that Doom Coalitions 3 and 4 are gonna end up being a retread of the latter half of Dark Eyes, when I would really like to see the 8th Doctor series take a more adventurous turn again. I mean, what we've got here is an insane Time Lord with multiple personalities and a Time Lady with seemingly infinite psychic powers. These are some big, universe-shaking ideas, and I just can't help feeling a bit disappointed that the series is still doing some very samey things with some incredibly interesting story elements. I mean, don't get me wrong, Sonim Answer is entertaining, and it does a better job of rounding off the events surrounding Kalira and the Gift than the Satanic Mill did with the events of Doom Coalition 1 with the 11. But I just felt that Sonim Answer wasn't quite as engaging, warm and bouncy as the rest of the box set. So yeah, that was Doom Coalition 2, and It's fine, what's the big deal? It's got a lot more going for it than people give it credit for. Just shut up and go and buy it already. I'm definitely not saying this because anyone's telling me to. No, this is my honest opinion. Look, just go on, hand over your bank card to this company in exchange for stories. No, honest, there is nothing suspicious about this video whatsoever. No, really, I'm not lying.
That's it, Stuart. Sell my things. You are my human plaything.